All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Golfers Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Noah. And if this is your first time joining us on the show, first of all, welcome. You came to the right place. And what we do on this podcast is I basically bring on a new guest every single week who is just a, for lack of a better word, normal, average Joe golfer who, like so many of us, just has this, very strange addiction to this, ball in the whole game. The reason I started this show is that I find that, once you find one person at a social gathering, a party, a bar that plays golf, automatically you have endless things to talk about, endless topics of conversation. So I just wanted to capture some of those conversations and throw them out on the internet. So my guest tonight, Johnny Long, friend of the pod. Johnny, I'll turn it over to you in a second to introduce yourself, but essentially the way I typically have people introduce themselves on the show is I want you to give us your name, how long you've been playing golf, and then your current handicap.
Okay. So I'm John Long. Noah and we go back to UMass track and field days. How did I start playing golf? Interesting story. So I first picked up golf when I was like 12 years old, but not for the reasons of golf. I actually started caddying at 12 years old. And it was basically my parents dropped me off at this country club up in the North Shore, Kernwood Country Club. And the understanding was you drop them off, get on the course for 4 hours or so, carry a bag, learn something, get some money. And this was a very cheap country club. Like I remember getting like a $20, just $20 right when I finished. And I was like, this is trash. Right. But as a 12-year-old, you're pumped because you just get money at the end of the day. So you're like, oh, awesome. Like I did something. And then really like the golf started picking up more and more. I think it just, picking up different things, being able to play for free at the course, and eventually working in the bag room there. I learned a ton from the people I caddied from. And then also too, from like the pros, they'd give me kind of like free lessons here and there on what I should and shouldn't do. A lot of it I didn't really pick up on because I was like, like my swing's my swing, right? I'm going to do it my way. And I played baseball my whole life. So doing the whole interlock, for example, was like a foreign concept to me. I actually didn't even pick that up until last year, which is the weirdest thing. But I'm an 11.
You didn't start interlocking until
Yeah,
last year,
yeah,
dude?
and hard to believe. Like I've been like a consistent now for like the past 2 years. I've been like an 11-10 handicap, and previously was like in the 13s, 14s. So like I think it's gone down as a result of me interlocking. Like, I think that's played a part, but for the longest time, I was like, this doesn't feel right. It's uncomfortable. So used to baseball, grip it and rip it. And it just felt better to not. So that's kind of how I got into it. But I did it more for like the money initially, the caddying part of it.
So did you then caddy all throughout high school, essentially?
Yeah, so started at 12 and really didn't stop until I was like 24, truthfully. I was doing it for like 12 years. Yeah.
So tell me about life as a caddy. Let's get into that. Like when you're 12 years old on a bag and you get paired with whoever you're gonna caddy for that day, like they must think to themselves, like I got a 12-year-old on the
Mhm.
bag. Like what do they expect from you when you're that
Yeah,
young?
so like with caddying, there's different tiers that go along with it, which is a good thing because when you're learning, you don't want to be paired with a golfer who's an A-lister and they're expecting you to give distances and your thoughts on a shot, right?
Right.
So really the first few years of me going out was learning about the different clubs, getting paired with a golfer that actually wanted to train people. And luckily for the club, those were the cheap guys too. So it was kind of funny. Like they didn't have to worry about, putting out one of their more experienced caddies and not having, one of them not getting paid as much as a result. So you get out there, they teach you a lot about like the different signs that you have to do. Especially if you're the difference between carrying like a bag or doing for caddying. So it's super important and they really care a lot about it, especially if it's a blind shot or something like that, letting them know, hey, are you in the bunker? Are you in the rough? Are you on the green? So I picked that up. And then eventually, you start working your way up to a little bit more experienced golfers. But with that comes a lot more responsibility. And I think it's just like people think that they're so good at golf, right? Like we do the same thing where we go on the course and we're like, oh, I'm going to shoot low today. And you start bombing and you're just not
Right.
going, it's going left to right. It's not straight. And it's the same thing for these guys, but like they got this little teenager who's carrying the bag for them. And here and there, you might be like, good shot, right? And and I can't tell you how many times a golfer sometimes has just been pissed off with me just because I'm just there with them and they're going through it.
Yeah.
But you learn a lot. Like I will say, like from 12 to like even into high school, the caddying from a personable, like adversity kind of growth piece, like I learned so much, and it definitely helped. Like professionally today, I still look at that as something that helped
Yeah.
me.
I mean, it's probably just a great way to learn how to talk to people. Like you're stuck with these people for 4 hours. I guess to your point, I don't know how much they want to talk to you on some days, but like it's probably a great way just to like, learn how to converse with, old people who are older than you at the very
you
least.
you find out like what people are interested in, right? Like nobody really like wanted to know a lot about me, and that was always what I thought was kind of
Mm,
funny. I work in sales now, right? And so like I never talk about me. I always talk about, like, I always ask the customer what's up with them. And I think a lot of it translates
mhm.
today for that, because sometimes I'd be telling them about like sports, for example, like in college when I was like doing track and things were going well. I was like, oh yeah, like did really well in a meet this year. Like I finished super high. I won a trophy or I won a medal. And they're like, I don't care. Like, I have a presentation about XYZ. And I'd be like, okay, like, what's the presentation about? And they cared more talking about that than anything that was going on in my
Right.
life. Yeah.
That makes sense. So did you ever get to a point where people at the club were requesting you to be their caddy?
Yeah, dude, that's so as a caddy, like this is the gold standard. Like if you can get a golfer to say, "Hey, I want John," and they tell you their tee time, it's you move up so high in the ranks, you're going to make so much more money. So that eventually happened to me. I think that took place in right around like high school. So I knew a guy.
You probably start getting some good word of mouth too. Like if one person does it, everybody starts wanting Johnny on the bag.
It's dude, it definitely spreads, which is good and also bad, right? So like I'd have multiple people asking sometimes, right? And there'd be a tournament, they'd be like, "Hey, did anybody grab you for the member yet?" And I'd be like, "No, I mean, I'm free, or if I was already taken." I'd be like, Jerry's got me already. They'd be like, "What is he paying you?" And that was kind of fun because you could wager it out a little
Dude,
bit.
that's
So
awesome.
I'd play that to my advantage if I ever got somebody that I already taken a job. I'd sometimes go back to the first person and be like, "Listen, like Dave just offered me like $100 more around. Like, are you cool with me doing that?" And it would burn bridges sometimes, but like you gotta go for the money.
That's awesome, dude. So you said you caddied for 12 years, all the way through college. Like, what was, I guess, two-part question. Like, what was like the highlight of your caddying experience? And then like, do you have any like crazy stories from when you
I
were doing it?
do. Yeah, unfortunately I do, which is like I do I used to think about some of them too, like it would bug me so much, but we'll start with the highlights. I mean, from a pay perspective as a caddy, you can make a lot of money. Like I was making upwards of $100 a bag. I'd carry two bags, so I'd make
How
$200.
many days a week?
It would be every Saturday and Sunday I'd go. And then sometimes during the weekdays, I'd get requests from like the members' wives would want to play, so I'd take them out for 9 holes, and like it's all under the table, right? So it's great. Like you make all this cash,
Right.
you don't have to claim any of it. So that was kind of nice. I think the money part of it was something I always looked to because like for tournaments, so member was a very big one where I caddied, and I used to go into these tournaments and try to like figure out, all right, who's going to be like spending the most money on their caddies. And I ended up getting like a really solid group. This one guy, Mike, who took care of me. Like if he hit a good putt, he'd walk up to me afterwards and we'd read it together. It'd be cool. Like it'd be like a moment for us.
Yeah.
He'd come up to me and he'd be like, "Take this," and slip $100 bill in my pocket. And like he'd keep doing it over and over again.
For one
Dude, there
putt?
was a tournament that I shit you not, after 3 days of caddying, we did right around 18 holes each day, just because sometimes there were playoff holes. Some days ended early. Like if they lost early,
Mhm.
they lost it after the third day. I had already from this guy alone got $800, and I hadn't even gotten paid from the other guy as like the total. I made like I made like close to 2 grand for 3 days, and it was like the funniest. Like I got drunk on the course with them. Like it was like one of the most fun experiences of my life. Like I had such a blast. So I think I think for me, like the money, and like also too just the relationship building. Like I loved that. That's something I always think about as like my positive, like my highlights from caddying, reading putts and stuff. Like you get lucky sometimes. Like I think I've seen videos of this before anyways, but like you can drop a ball on the green the same way every time and it doesn't roll in, right? Like it's weird. But golfers sometimes also too suck where like they can't hit it to where you ask them to hit it. And if they miss it by accident, like they don't blame you sometimes, right? So that's kind of nice. But the worst interaction, this is like to this day, like I left the club. I put his stuff down at the bag after and said, I'm walking to my car and I'm not going to caddy for you for the rest of the round. This guy's
mid-round.
I was on the 12th hole. And this is a long walk from the 12th hole. Like if Kerma Country Club at Salem, the 12th hole is like, it's probably the third or second longest like walk on the course back to the clubhouse. So it's a par 3 downhill, hits it in the water, duffs his second shot out. So he's already like lying 5. And I'm like, do you want a 60 degree or 56? And he looks at me kind of funny. And I was like, okay. So I just held both out. He didn't want either, grabbed a pitching wedge and bombs it over the green. I'm like, okay. So then he grabs another, tries to hit another shot out over past the green. He finally gets on the green and his buddies are giving it to him. They're just like assholes the whole time. And like, I don't care. I mean, this is the thing as a caddy, like unless you're invested in a tournament, you can't really care. Like you just have to go with it.
Right. It's just a day's work.
He asked me for a read on the green, and I look at the green, and I start walking up, and the guy in his group goes, you just stepped in my line. I said, that's one rule as a caddy. You never want to step in someone's line. So I looked at him, I said, I don't think I stepped in your line. I'm pretty sure I stepped over it. And my guy starts freaking out at me. I think he was just frustrated. He's like, John, enough. Like, you don't know how to read the greens. I was, okay, sure. So he misses the putt, and I'm walking away. The other caddy in the group's putting the pin in. My golfer throws his putter at me, hits the bag, right? I look behind me, and I was like, did you just throw your putter at me? And he looks up and goes, you're fine. And I was like, fuck you, buddy. Like, I'm not doing this. I don't care. So I immediately, we all wear bibs, right? I take my bib off. Yeah. I leave my towel in the bag and I said, you can carry your fucking bag. And I start walking up. Sure enough, he had already called the clubhouse. I got back and the head pro brings me in his office and I was shitting bricks. I was like, I'm never going to be able to come back here. Like, and he pulls me and he locks the door and he's like, what you said to Joe Pick is not cool. However, it's fucking hilarious, and starts dying laughing. And he's like, the guy deserved it. He's an asshole. He told me this story. Tell me what happened. I tell him the whole thing. And the pro was like, you're fine. We're just going to tell him he can't talk to people like that, but don't ever worry about it. Like he owes you an apology. And sure enough, we made up about it. He gave me a hug like the following weekend. And I was like,
was he one of your regulars?
No, I actually didn't like caddying for him. He was like one of the first people I met that gave me a really hard time. He was one of the first golfers that I would caddy for. And it would be consistently him yelling at me about something, about a distance being off, or like, I need to know the front of the green, not the middle of the green. Right. And listen, I'm simple. Like if you tell me how far the pin is away, I kind of guesstimate how much I need to go. You know what I mean? So
right.
Yeah, not a great experience.
That's awesome, man. I didn't know you did that. And I certainly didn't know you did it for that long. That's awesome experience. I guess to close out the thread on caddying, did you ever, or I guess, do you still have an itch to ever like go be a caddy at, like take a year off from work and just go caddy at Bandon Dunes or something like that?
You know,
because you have the experience.
So I caddied in a couple of tournaments for people that like, so Kernwood and Salem Country Club in Tedesco, they're up in the North Shore. I would caddy in tournaments up there. So like Massachusetts amateur tournaments or Massachusetts amateur qualifiers. And I would usually get referred by people, which was cool. It's like I get a phone call from someone being like, hey, I know you caddy at Kernwood. You willing to caddy for me? Here's my rate. So that was nice. And I actually really loved it because like if you had your guy qualify, they'd take you to the Mass Am, which is pretty interesting.
Awesome.
Like we made it to a round at the Mass Am, the second qualifier, and the guy didn't make it, but it was such a fun time. So I think if the opportunity ever presented itself, I 100% would. It's such a great way to make money. It's a great way to make relationships. But unless you're doing it full time, and also to dealing with just like the travel of it, it would definitely be a lot.
Right.
I'd have to chat with people in my circle to see if anybody be willing to hire me. That'd be kind of fun though.
I mean, dude, once you maybe this pod will be your big break. Somebody will listen to this and they'll get you on the web.com tour or something like
Maybe.
that. I want that guy in my bag. But anyways, dude, so back to, I guess, like golf itself. You picked it up once you started caddying, and how did the, love for actually playing golf develop from there?
Yeah, dude, I actually hated golf at first. Like I wasn't a fan of it at all.
Really?
Yeah, so I played baseball my whole life like I said, and I it doesn't translate well in terms of like swinging straight. Like anybody who played baseball, you have a slice. So going into golf, I would aim as far left as possible, and then I'd here and there I'd hit it straight, or sometimes I'd slice it so bad it would still go into the right rough, right? And I wasn't having like a lot of fun with it because like if you're not good at something, right? Like sometimes it's irritating and you want to be better. So
Hmm.
I would just take time off. I wouldn't even golf a lot of the times when I was like in caddying season, but I think when I really started to pick it up and like it more, I joined golf club in like middle school, and then eventually like started doing like a golf league in high school on the side, and I, it just started clicking more. Like I got strength. I was able to hit the ball farther. Things would come together more. I'd get little tips and tricks from the pros at Kernwood. That was so helpful. So like picking that stuff up was massive, and I started playing a lot more as a result. But I think for a solid like 5 years, like from 12 to 17ish, like I was like, this is a shitty sport, it takes too long. I was super impatient, and I think it just took me a little bit longer to like really want to like love the sport. And now I mean it's dude, if you told me we had like a virtual golf round tonight, I'd be like, cool, where and when, I'm there.
Love that, man. Um, so you'd say that, like, college and kind of post college is when you really caught the bug.
Post college for sure, because like if you think about it, in college, right? I mean, I didn't have any money. I was so broke. I mean, I was working as a pizza delivery driver, man. So it was kind of fun. Like on the weekends, if I had some time off, I'd be like, oh, cool. Like I have enough to go play at Cherry Hill, right? But
Right.
I after college, friends and also like former people I caddy for, people I played golf with in the past, they'd be at clubs. They'd be like, hey, like, do you want to play here? I'd be like, absolutely. So I started playing a lot more of different courses post college. And then I always still got to play for free at Kernwood. So that was like the biggest plus in the world.
Can't
Yeah.
hate that.
Free golf is great.
So, funny story that I actually want to run by
Okay.
you. So for our listeners that don't know, Johnny threw jav when we were at UMass running track. So when I was in Miami a couple months ago, in December, and we had three guys. We played golf a couple days, and one of the days we pull up to the golf course and they put us with a random fourth, and it's like this massive dude. He's like walking up with rental clubs. Like, it definitely doesn't look like the most mobile fella. Bombs it off the first tee. I'm like, oh damn, this guy can play golf. So then like we get to talking a little bit more, as you do when you have like a fourth guy in your group. Turns out he's like, I'm like, oh, why you down here, man? Oh, I was just like down here with some teammates having a guys trip. I'm like, oh, what sport you play? He's like, I ran track. Or he's like, I threw shot put at South
Mm.
Carolina. And we get to talking a little bit more. I'm telling him I did hurdles at UMass. Turns out, dude, he's the world bronze medalist from last year's world championships in the shot put.
Holy shit.
Josh Owatunde. And I text Coach Knapp. I'm like, you wouldn't believe who I just played golf with. I'm telling him, he's like, dude, that is so awesome. You wouldn't believe the torque in this guy's swing. And he's like, I'm like, dude, when did you start playing golf? He's like, I started taking a golf class in college because like all the Carolina schools have something
Sure.
like that.
Yeah.
And he's like obviously an unreal athlete. He's like, I basically lift and then I go play golf whenever I can. It was unbelievable. But yeah, he's basically like, I lift whenever. He's like, I'm essentially a full-time lifter, and when I'm not doing that or working on technique, I'm just on the course playing golf. And I was like, you're probably the best athlete I've ever been around in my life.
That's incredible. I bet he bombed it. Like, did he just absolutely crank the ball?
Dude, when he got a hold of it,
Yeah.
it was like the easiest power I've ever seen in my life. Granted, he was like, admit, like he was still like learning the game. Like he had only been playing for like 2 years, so his short game was a little rough around the edge. But when he found the center of the face, that thing like launched. It was
Yeah.
nuts.
It's fun watching people like that are just large creatures be able to play golf because it's such a like, you look at some of the professional golfers and it's such a, there's so much finesse that goes into it. But for these guys, like if they can just get a hold of it and like their short game comes together, it's such a cool experience to watch.
And it was like he was just saying like ever since he wasn't even just like really into golf. He was like so fascinated by like the history of the sport, telling us all these like old YouTube videos he was watching of like Tiger Woods in like 2000. I was like, dude, this is like awesome. And he's probably going to be in the Olympics in like
Yeah.
4 months,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
That's I
Um,
gotta ask, like, did he say like what his plans were? Because I feel like golf is such a good sport where like you can play it in your spare time. You know what I mean? Like you can just do it whenever.
right.
Like, did he just say like, I'm just doing this on the side, and I have the Olympic qualifiers coming up, whatever.
Dude, he was essentially just like, because at the time it was kind of his, it wasn't his off season, but like he wasn't really like in deep into his training for June yet. So he was just like, yeah, at this point I'm just lifting and playing golf. That's like all I do. And it's like, and like my trainer doesn't really care because I get my steps in and like it's good for rotation, I guess. But yeah, dude, it was wild to see him get a hold of it. And like literally just his PR was like, I'm gonna butcher this. It was like 23 meters. Does that sound like right?
I don't. It's so bad.
I mean, I
Coach
guess I could
Knapp
look it
would
up
be
right
very
now.
mad at me that I don't know how far, but I will, to his credit or to my credit, I think I did shot put for 5 days before he was like, "You're not a refrigerator. You can't do this." And I was like, "All right, sounds good."
I mean, yeah, dude, here we go. 2022 World Athletic Championships, 22.79 meters. That is 73
That's
feet,
disgusting.
bro.
That's disgusting.
Unbelievable.
Oh my God.
But yeah, that's my quick aside, and I mentioned that because I want, dude, what do you think Jav did to your golf swing? Do you think it improved? Obviously, you got stronger at UMass.
I think it only helped. I think back to like when I was throwing jav initially, like freshman sophomore year, I really didn't like care about it too much, and we didn't have Coach Knapp yet. And then Coach Knapp comes in junior year, and he's like, you're such an upper body like guy. You need to use your legs more." And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's all these guys that are massive, like torsos, they're throwing jab. And then he starts showing me more videos. Like the hip torque and the thrust that goes into it from your lower body is so big. When I say this in my head when I swing, but whenever I'm about to take like a big swing off like a driver, I always think hips and arms at the same time. Because if I don't move my hips, I don't nearly get as much distance. And when I do, it cranks. So I think there's definitely something
Right.
to it that like the javelin and the throwing certainly helped like distance wise on my swings.
So now that you've been playing a little bit more, why don't you tell me a little bit about your best ever round?
My best ever round. So I've only broken, or excuse me, I've come very close to breaking 80. Like I've been in scrambles before with people where I think we've taken almost every single one of my shots and we've been like 74, 75, but I've never
Mm.
personally broken 80. I think the closest I've been was in fact 80. It's so hard because you you have a couple like I always do this. I have a couple holes where like I'm going and I'm par, maybe like one bogey, come back with another birdie. And it's just consistent, steady Eddie. And then I put one OB and I'm like, motherfucker, it's going to go downhill from here. And that's kind of how like my best round went ever. It was at Kernwood, which is a little bit biased, I think, but I played there on like a Monday after work and I was like, it was like 3 o'clock. I got out early and I'm like, yes, like let's get over there. I played, finished up around like right when the sun was setting at 7, and it was a chip that would have sealed 79, and I put it tight. And I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, that's the best I can do. But I think I've come so close so many times to breaking 80 and I've just never gotten there. I'm just, like by myself personally. It's such a goal of
Mhm.
mine. I'm like waiting for the day that I can like get that done. Yeah.
I'm with you. I feel like whenever you get in a position like that, it's so hard not to like scorecard watch. Like if
Yeah.
you're 6 over through 15 or 6 over through 14, something like that. And it like feels so easy. It's just like, oh, I just need like two bogeys to come home, or like two bogeys in a par or something like that. But then you just get in your head and that the swing just does not cooperate if you start thinking about the
I,
score.
I can't, I have a really hard time. Like if I play golf and I'm in a cart, I cannot look at the scorecard. I like to keep my score. Like I'm very diligent about like every hole, but I will never let
Mm,
myself like look at previous holes. I'll try my best to like almost cover them
right.
up just because it's like it's such a mental game. Like you don't even think about it until you're actually looking at a scorecard where you're like, oh shit, I'm like 2 over and we're already on the back
Right.
nine. Like this is nuts. And it's like, there you go, buddy. You're going downhill now.
Yeah, you're done. You're cooked.
Yeah.
Downhill from there. But so you haven't broken 80 yet. That's your goal. Do you have like one shot in your golfing career that like really stands out to you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this one a lot because um last year was one of like my best years, just because of the amount of golf I played, where I played, who I played with too. Like I played with a lot of really good golfers. I think my favorite best shot that I've ever had. So up in Kennebunkport, there's a country club up there called Cape Arundel. And it's famous for the Bush family has a compound in Kennebunkport. So my cousin's friend is a member there, and like it's so cool. You walk in, it's like the country club, uh, basically the pro shop where you walk in. It's like Club 44, so like that's kind of cool, and to see that, or 43,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and then you work your way on the course. It's not a super long course, but it's only a walking course, so which is a little bit different. And there's this one par four that's super narrow to start, and I was kind of shaky with the driver and the 3 wood initially. I kept saying to my cousin, I'm like, I don't really know if I trust the driver on this hole, but like I kind of want to bomb it. And he's like, dude, just do it. Like just grab the driver and do it. And I duffed my shot. Like I could totally duffed it. And I'm like, damn it. Like I'm like in the rough and I'm still like a solid 300 out. It's sitting up, and I look at my cousin and I'm like, this is like the perfect 3 wood shot. It's a downhill 300 plus yard shot. If I get close to the green, I'll be pumped. Dude, sure enough, I put this thing within like 2 feet. I cranked this second shot and I ended up burning the hole. So I was pumped. It was like one of those shots where like we thought it went in. We're all running up and I'm like, this is going to be
Right.
the coolest 2 in the world. And sure enough, it was just off. It was like I said, just within 2 feet. Put it in for birdie. But one of like the one of the best feelings in the world, like after having like a really bad tee shot and coming back with one of the most miraculous second shots in the world.
Yeah, there's nothing better than a good recovery shot. I think when I had Todd on here, his like whole thing, he's like, dude, I love hitting out of like pine straw. I love hitting out of like the woods. I'm like, dude, nobody's ever said that. But he's like, I just love like saving par or like somehow making a birdie from like a place where like nobody thinks you can do it. Especially if you're like, hitting a 300-yard 3 wood. That'll
It
do.
makes me think about like pro golfers like I have a thought on this that I've told people before, but like Jordan Spieth is notorious for going every which way on the golf course. He goes
Right.
left, right, and somehow still makes a birdie or a par. Like it's incredible. So whenever I do that, wherever I go left or right, I always say like, "Oh, I just hit a Jordan Spieth par," or like I did a Jordan Spieth hole.
Right.
But like, I think that we probably should rename that to like I just did a Todd. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We got to tell him that. But on the topic of Jordan Spieth, do you consider yourself to be a golf fan? Because I know golf's an interesting sport where it's like you have people that play a ton, but they don't follow the PGA Tour or anything like that. So where do you fall on the spectrum of being a golf fan or not?
So I am a golf fan. I like to watch certain golf matches, like certain majors, the Masters every year, the Players, the PGA Championship, the FedEx Cup, that sort of thing. Like I love those big ones because I think that's where it gets taken a little bit more seriously. I like to
Right.
gamble on it too, truthfully. Like I like to throw some money around and just kind of see like, oh, like I'm a homer for whoever, and I just want to see if they win.
Golf is a great game to
It's
gamble on.
amazing. It's so much fun because
It's almost like horse racing because the odds are so
they
juicy.
are, and like also too, not for nothing, but it feels like it's a different person every week. And so you're like, it can't
Yeah.
be Scotty again, right? It's got to be somebody else. So I'm super into watching it when it's on for the big tournaments. But like I remember there was like the Genesis Invitational back a couple weeks ago, and someone's like, "Oh, are you watching that?" And I'm like, "What? What? I don't even know where that is." Like unfortunately, like I don't care about the small ones, but I'm definitely a big golf fan.
So you said you like to gamble on golf. Are you I guess do you have anything already placed for Augusta? Anything you're looking at
I
taking?
do honestly. I have big money on Brooks Koepka. I actually really like him this year. I think that he has a really good shot.
Safe bet in the majors.
It's a favorable bet. I think I forget what I got the odds at, but I like him. I like Xander Schauffele too. I feel like he's always in the top, but he just never quite closes. So I feel like he's in a good spot. Scotty's just the odds are too low. But he could
It's crazy how low the odds are
he
on Scotty. Like I think it's like last I saw was plus 450 for a golf tournament. That's like unheard of, especially a major. That's like unbelievable. Normally the lowest will be plus 800, plus 900, and even that's low.
he could do it. Like he could certainly do it, and it would be cool. I think it'd be great for the sport to find kind of a new Tiger Woods, but I want so bad it to be somebody that's like just like one of the like hunker like golfers. I don't know. That's why I think of Brooks. Like I think he's just kind of like a dude, and like not that Scotty isn't.
Yeah, or like
Yeah,
DJ.
yeah. Like DJ when he won was sick. It was awesome.
You know who's also similarly like that? Who's got some pretty juicy odds? Wyndham Clark.
Oh, yeah.
He kind of carries that same like DJ Brooks Koepka vibe, like bombs it, massive cut. Dude, he's at 35-1, and he's been playing some like stellar golf. That's pretty tempting. That's what I have my eye
I
on.
kind of like it. I mean, he's been good. He's been really good. And since the what was it? Was like the I forget where he played.
Course record at
Pebble
Pebble
Beach. He
Beach.
was just stud. Or he also I think he won L.A. Country Club too. Whatever that was last year. That was incredible.
Yeah, he won the
Yeah,
U.S. Open, and then he course record at Pebble, and then he's been second to Scotty in back-to-back weeks. So
he's due.
arguably second best golfer right now. I like Brooks. I think Brooks, I just love Brooks's attitude. Like he seems like the only guy on tour that obviously he does give a fuck, but I just love how he's just like so contrarian to the rest of the golfers out there. Always makes for some good media days, and he's just like fun to watch the way he plays. But so with that, do you have a favorite golfer on tour?
It's weird. I I don't necessarily have a favorite golfer. I went to the U.S. Open at the Country Club, and I had such an amazing opportunity to see all these different people play, and the way that people carry themselves, like that was something that kind of stood out to me. I wish that Will Zalatoris was healthy because I loved the way that he played. Like I loved his
Yeah.
demeanor the whole time, and people just fed off of it. So I don't really have like a favorite golfer per se. I just like, and I don't think I dislike anyone on Live. Like I like all of them the same. Honestly, I think it's just I don't. There's certain golfers that I dislike. Right? Like I think that Bryson DeChambeau is kind of like he put on a show and like he's funny, but it kind of got old. Right? Like something like that. I don't have any golfers though that I'm like, oh my god, they're my favorite person ever. Yeah.
But let's go back to the U.S. Open a little bit. What was your? Is that the only golf tournament you've been to in person? Are you trying to go to more of those things in person?
Dude, I'm laughing because I I've been to I've been very lucky. I've been to a couple of different golf tournaments. So I've been to a U.S. Senior Open up in the North Shore at Salem Country Club, and then I went to.
I didn't know they had that up
They
there.
do, yeah. It's every like few years they do it. I think it's like they did it early 2000s, then they did like mid 2010s, and
Hmm.
dude, that was incredible. Like that, seeing some people finish, like VJ Singh, Freddie Couples, like you just watch people walk in, and you're like, what? Like these are like characters out of a movie. It seems like, right? So I've been to those two. I'm trying to think back. There's also like little tournaments. I went to TPC. That was a blast. I had a lot of fun there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've been lucky to go to all these different tournaments, but I will say, like, of all of them, the US Senior Open was my favorite. And I say that because the US Open I felt like a little bit crowded. I went on Championship
Oh,
Sunday.
so
It
crowded.
was a shit show. Like I watched Will Zalatoris miss that putt on 18 through someone's phone, I was like, fuck
Dude,
this. Yeah.
Todd and I were also there on Sunday, and we were standing. So, like, you know how Fitzpatrick found himself in that fairway bunker on the left side of the
What a
fairway?
shot.
We were, we were like right across from him on the right side in the crowd, and like I'm a tall guy. I couldn't see a damn thing. The only saving grace is that radio they give you, like the little
Yeah.
Amex thing, so you can at least hear it. And then like you hear the crack of the ball go up in the air. You can't even see it land. Like the atmosphere is electric. But I feel like me personally, I think it's more enjoyable to probably watch like a Sunday on your
Mhm.
couch and then spend the money and go to like a practice round or something like that where you can actually get up close to these guys and you just have more freedom to go wherever.
I thought about that because, like, my friend, my friend is an assistant supervisor, like ground supervisor for the country club. So he hooked us up. I've actually played there, which is like one of the most amazing things in
Oh,
the
that's
world. Like
awesome.
thinking back, you know what I mean? But like he hooked us up with.
We got to get your buddy on the
I
pod
know,
next.
I know. He hooked us up with different volunteer opportunities. So I put my name in. I didn't get it, but my roommate did, and he was even saying, he's like, I'm so happy I don't have to work this Championship Sunday. I don't even want to go because of how much the crowd has grown each day. He said
Yeah.
Sunday, he was there Saturday, and he's like, I just don't want to be there on Saturday. Like, I want to be on my couch now. So I can definitely relate to that.
And like a course like the country club, obviously, like you've played it. It's like stunning, but it's like it was built in the 1910
Mhm.
or something like that. Like it's not meant to have these massive grandstands and like thousands of people sprawled along it. But yeah, that's awesome. I never thought about the like going to a US Senior Open or anything like that, or like a Champions Tour event. I feel like to your point, it must be cool. Like these guys are still so good at golf. Like they can still play really good golf. It must be cool to see them. And probably not too expensive to go to something
It's
like that.
not. I lucked out. I will say, dude, the caddying perks were unbelievable sometimes, and the head pro couldn't go. He had tickets to a club that was at I grew up around Salem Country Club, so I was like, wait, you have
Right.
tickets to here? He's like, yeah, take them. He's like, just make sure you have an ID because like you can't get, it's an open bar, you can't get booze without it. I was like 20, so I had a fake ID on me, and me and my buddy, we lucked out, but we had a blast on the lawn watching people walk in. It was a really cool time.
So on the topic of golf courses in general, to start rounding us out, do you have like do you have a favorite golf course that you've ever played? I imagine it might be the one where you caddy, but maybe you'll surprise me. And then are there any like big golf trips that you've been on, or any courses that you would on your bucket list to go to at some point?
Yeah, so surprisingly, it's actually Kernwood is not my favorite golf course I've ever played. I think it's just I've played there so much, I've been there so much that I don't look at it as like the number one place. I think it's more,
Had a putter thrown at
yeah,
you.
dark times, man. There's other things too, but like it's just I've spent so much time there. I feel like I know the ins and outs of it so well. I mentioned I played the
Right.
country club. It's definitely up there, but people are probably going to be like, "How do you not say the country club?" Salem Country Club is my favorite course I've ever played. It's up in Peabody, Mass. It's one of the most beautiful private country clubs. I've always said if I could afford it, that would be the first place that I would go to get a membership. It's a Donald Ross course, beautiful layout, a lot of false fronts, but it's truly just one of those courses that you play, and even regardless of if it's a good or a bad day, the way that it starts and finishes, and it's mostly like a woods course. There's like one little strip of water. It's just such a pretty
Right.
course, and they've had a lot of history, a lot of legacy there. So I'd say that's number one for me on my list.
And then any golf courses on your bucket list? Any big golf trips on the horizon?
So we used to do this every single year for like 2 years in a row. I don't know why. I think we just with work things stopped, but One of my buddies from UMass actually played football, Joe Parsons, and then one of his friends, now one of my friends that he went to school with at Severian. We go on a golf trip every year, or we plan a golf trip every year. So we did Arizona the second year. The first year we just kind of did like local shit around the South Shore, like Pine Hills and courses in the Cape.
Right.
And then I had to miss the North Carolina trip that they did last year. So I
Oh,
know. We we've done like a lot of good golf. Arizona was incredible. Like that in itself made me fall in love with that area and want to play more out there. But I don't have anything booked on the horizons. I will say I did eventually get down to North Carolina and I played near Outer Banks down there, and it's just the most plush grass in the world, man. You are just hitting off of like what feels like a mat, and that was like one of my favorite golf courses to go to, in just the sense that like it's cheap, it's easy, it's good golf, like you're not paying a shit ton, and like the weather is
right.
incredible, it's impeccable down there.
If you're looking for a destination, so we went down to Pinehurst. We didn't stay on the
Okay.
resort, but like Pinehurst itself, it's like, dude, it's like golf heaven. There's like the most you're gonna have to drive for golf is like 15 minutes. It's just like the roads are just lined with golf courses. It's like so good, pretty affordable. And then in August, me and a couple buddies are going out to Wisconsin, which on the surface doesn't really sound like it would be that sick
Yeah,
for golf.
that's
Um,
interesting.
but we're gonna hit Erin Hills, where they had the 2017 U.S. Open that Brooks won. They've got the Sand Valley Resort out there, which is owned by the same people as Bandon Dunes, but it's like a little more affordable. So yeah, once you get under the hood, man, Wisconsin, it'll really blow your mind.
I would
Um,
never think Wisconsin, but I bet it's probably like I can't imagine it's super expensive,
Michigan too.
right? Is it expensive or no?
Not really. I mean, like the flight to Milwaukee is obviously super cheap. Like Milwaukee itself seems like a cool enough city. I think we're gonna try and catch like a Wisconsin Madison football game while we're there because it lines
Nice.
up. So it should be pretty cool, man. And you can balance out like the really expensive rounds with like some pretty good budget stuff
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. That's fun. That sounds like a good time.
To round us out, Johnny, we're at just about 45 minutes. Why don't you tell me what your best golf memory is today, and then to close us out, why do you keep playing golf? Why do you keep coming back to this game?
I thought a lot about this one too. It's because it's so, for me anyways, like I feel like I've had so many, like starting so young and caddying and then eventually start to play golf. So I feel like I've gotten really lucky there. I think my favorite golf memory was when I first started getting into golf, right around 17, 18 in high school, and then started meeting people at all these different clubs. I eventually ended up going to play over at Salem Country Club. So one of the members was like, join me. I'm going to play with my buddies. You're more than welcome to play. And I was like, dude, I started off like the first hole is fun. Like it's a long hole, but like it tests you a little bit, right? And of course, like I sucked right away. Like I just couldn't figure it out. But like me and this guy, I caddied for him for like 3-4 years, and he's like, we're driving
Yeah.
down to his ball. He's like, just drop one with me, and he's like, dude, no stress today. Have like one of the best experiences of your life. Like just play golf and don't worry about like what your score is. Like just play. And I think it was one of like the first rounds that I ever had that I actually like, it didn't matter what I hit. I just had like a ton of fun out there. And I think that's like one of the reasons why like I always go back to golf. Like I get frustrated when I play. Who doesn't, right? But that moment out there, like playing, I think I birdied like 2 holes and the rest were probably all double bogeys or more. Like it wasn't like a good round, but I will tell you, like you take the small wins, right? Like that birdie that I first hit, like I dapped up everybody on the green. Like we were all so pumped. Drinks were flowing. Like it was such a good time. And I think that that's really what makes me want to keep golfing. It's the relationships, it's the friends, it's the experience. Like there's no sport out there aside from like maybe skiing where you spend a majority of your day doing said sport and doing it in a way where there's a lot of like just passive time going by. So you generate
Right.
conversation with people, you like learn more about like people's lives more than ever. So it's like a deep sentimental thing for me where I feel like that's kind of the reason why I go back to it. And I mean, I can't recall a time as of, like the last 5 years, I'll say, where I went out and golfed and, you know, one of us wasn't like super pumped after a hole because someone hit a great shot or someone did something. Like, you celebrate the small stuff, you enjoy it with your friends, and like it's what makes you keep coming back.
100%. I feel like one time my girlfriend, she asked me, she's like, you go out there, you play golf every weekend, like what do you guys do really for 4 hours? And I'm like there's just a lot of, she's like, I know you're not hitting golf shots for 4 straight hours. And I was like, I don't even know what we talk about. We just like hang
Yeah.
out. And she's like, you should like think how lucky you are, because like I don't have something like that with my friends. And I was like, that's valid. It's like it is a very unique thing that you just go out to. I mean, obviously you have to pay for it, but you just get to go out, hang out with your buddies for 4 hours in the
Mm-hmm.
sunlight. Sometimes it's like, sometimes you play great, sometimes you play like shit, and like even when you play like shit, still a lot of fun.
That's like my girlfriend when she's a nurse, so sometimes she works weekends, and she calls it like if she's working all weekend, she'll be like, it's a bachelor weekend for you. You can go play golf. And I'm like, you just don't get it, like how much fun it is just to be with these people. And it's not the golf, it's the interactions, it's everything. So I stand by
Yeah, like you just need one good
that. That's it.
shot that'll want you to come back the next time, and it's a success. Like you could shoot 110, but you like made a long putt for birdie on the last hole, and you're like, all right, I feel
Yeah.
great now.
Yeah. The 100 stuff to look at afterwards, but you say, all right, next time I go out there, I'm going to
Yeah,
grow. I'm going to get better.
throw out the
Yeah.
scorecard.
Yeah.
We can wrap up there. Thank you so much, Johnny, for taking the time coming on the pod. This was a blast. I'm sure we could go all day about your caddy stories. I find that extremely interesting. I'm gonna ask you about that like or the entire time we play next. Or at the very least, I'm gonna have you read my putts next
Yeah.
time we
Done.
play.
Done. I got you.
Thanks for coming on, man. This was a blast. And have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, dude.